No.
No.
It's Dave.
It's Dave.
All right.
It's just Dave.
He is
just
here.
Dave.
Yeah, just properly attired for the season, though. You can eat your sandwich.
I'm sorry?
It's a cookie.
Oh, that was a pita
That is.
sandwich. Here comes Craig. All right, we are ready to begin. With us this evening is Patrick Knight, Mike Roth, Craig Schulte, Aaron Carlson, Ben Peters, myself, Michael Gary, King Dunsmore online, and representing the city is David Assa. I got a little nod out of that one. Okay, city attorney for the evening. Thank you. Anyone here for open forum? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Anyone have any questions about the meeting minutes or bills or anything of that nature?
No, all good.
And then we have the long-awaited fire ladder truck purchase, and we need to make approval to that. Would anyone like to make a motion to add that to the consent agenda?
I would make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All right. Can we include that as the approval, do I still need to?
Can we add it to the,
You can just say that you recognize the consensus of the council.
There,
The
as-
power that the chair has. Amazing.
As Mike said, that's what we're going to do tonight. Very good.
excellent.
All right, next up is the Planning Commission's report for Hamilton variance, and that's Resolution 2023-20.
Pretty straightforward. I assume you guys saw that, probably know where it is. Yeah, I mean, it was an oversight on their part in terms of the porch was not what Anna was thinking about when they were building it, so they missed that. But really, there were no complaints. The one complaint that did come forward was about the road, and it didn't necessarily relate to the house. So,
Okay. Just like the condition of the road.
the condition of the road, which it is in rough shape down there, and yeah, what's that?
It's undeveloped.
It's undeveloped
Okay,
on purpose.
all right.
And otherwise, it definitely is enhancing the neighborhood. It belongs there. It's great to have it. There really wasn't any negatives to this at all. And then looking at the house, well, the house that you could see most clearly, the one to the east, it seemed like, yeah, that it did line up pretty well, even so, with the surrounding properties. So.
Okay. So,
I just have something to,
Oh, yeah.
if you go all the way back to where the city of Grand Marais, the actual form that we're approving here.
Yeah.
It says, whereas the applicant, Anna Hamilton, is requesting a front yard setback variance of 7 foot from the required 25. That's what's printed here. The application was 5 foot. Did that get changed? Or is that a
just typo?
misprint?
I would hand that over to,
That might just be my error. I put
Okay.
in the 7 foot, and I thought I read that on the application, but
It's not a big thing, I just thought I'd bring that out.
I believe it to be a 5 foot.
Because on all the
Yeah, and I
other paper, all
think
the
it
other
might have
paperwork
been-
says 5
Yeah.
foot.
Sure.
and it was actually a little bit less, but
Okay, so
Doesn't
we'll just
matter.
get
So we
that
can clean that
corrected.
up, yeah.
Get that fine-tuned before we, provided that was okay. Did,
Otherwise, that's the only question I
okay.
had about it.
Well, I would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-20, the Hamilton variance.
all right, would anyone like to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further comments or questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that would be unanimous on that.
Yeehaw.
Okay, and next up, the HRA, potential development. Which brings us to our first guest of the evening.
Yay!
We can change that later as this moves
Yeah,
along.
fill in the blank Mad Libs or whatever they call that. Hello, Council. Jason Hale, Executive Director of the HRA. I believe in your packet there's a little aerial concept rendering here. Last year, I think, I had talked, I know with Minister Roth, and I think maybe with some counselors who are here, about this property generally. It is, I think we're all familiar with it, in front of the utility or operation shed in the back there, and then this is on the south side of Highway 61. Right now, I think there was a motel there before, was that? Okay, it was demolished, and there's sort of the remnants of the parking lot and where the buildings were. And, I've been kind of keeping this just in the back of my mind, this property. For one, it's flat, which is rare. And it also is attached to utilities and city ownership. So since talking about this about a year ago, again, it's been on the back of my mind is maybe someday somebody would be interested in doing something there. So every so often when I talk with a developer, I bring the site up and I say, I don't know what the city's appetite is or how they feel about it, but I know they own this property, and to my knowledge, they don't have any imminent plans for it. And it's for a couple of reasons, it might make sense to put housing there. So what you see here is there's a developer, Duval Companies, and I've been meeting with them for a couple of months now, a few months. They're interested in being in Grand Marais, and in particular, you might have heard me talk before about the state's workforce housing development program. Mouthful, it was renewed this last legislative session and got funded $40 million for the state for Greater Minnesota. It was $2 million before that, so this is sort of a one-time shot for us to actually get some money from that program. And in fact, I think a recollection is Sawbill Village, if you were heard about that at all, in Tofty. Right. That was awarded some funds from that program, but the project just didn't work. I think it was 6 or 8 units. I worked with that owner for a long time, and the math was just really bad. It was really small. So my point in any way is to say that program got a substantial one-time injection of funding, and Minnesota Housing is going to be releasing that application in the next month and a half or so. And so we're trying to prepare potential projects to go after those funds because we want to get a grant if we can from the state to do more housing. Right. It is very unlikely that we'll get another amount of that size for sure. I've already, Senator Hochschild and Representative Scrabo were here last week at the gala and had some chance to talk with them, and there's no appetite right now from the legislature to do another large deal like that. So all of that is context to say we want to try to make sure to capture that funding while we can, because it is the one program that it's competitive still, but there's a lot more flexibility, and it's not a tax credit program. And so you don't have to go through these layers and layers of applications and processes. And so the developer Duval Companies reached out and said, hey, we've been looking at Grand Marais for a little while, and do you know of any sites where we could do a workforce housing program or project? Talked to a couple. We looked at 5 different sites, 5 or 6. One of which was a county-owned site up on Creechville Road by the ball fields there. It had a wetland delineation done. It's very wet. It's mostly water. Apparently half of Cook County is mostly water. Sorry, I've seen every wetland delineation we've got. There's been wetlands. This doesn't have any, so that's a plus. So this was one of the other sites that we looked at, and so what you see here is a rough but thought out rendering of how the property could lay, and this would be for a 16 to 20 unit project that would include garages for all of the tenants and a community room that's, you guys says there, storage community room by the patio there. There's obviously some design wiggle room there, but this was to get the conversation started. I wanted to pose the question again, hey, this property was on the radar a while ago. There might be an opportunity to use it for a multifamily project like this and capture some of that funding. The other projects the HRA is working on right now actually were not going after workforce housing funds because the timing is so terrible. So switchback wasn't an option. It was pre-legislated, all those reasons. So now we have a sort of window. And I've talked with my HRA colleagues across the state, and everyone's planning on trying to get some of that small amount of money. So
yeah, might as well.
Yeah, surprise. So I don't think there's going to be a lot left, I guess, is what I'm saying for another round. So we're just trying to do what we can to set the stage for a project in Grand Marais, Cook County.
Great.
So any questions generally? This is kind of a meet and greet with you, and put this back in a radar, or ask what your appetite would be to use this property for a workforce housing project and answer questions.
Mike, can I ask one question? Is this where Tim Kennedy was asking about? Is that the same spot,
It's
or is
right
it down?
next to it. If you look at the drawing all the way on the left side,
Yep. and go
Oh,
down
okay.
That little square.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
This
Oh,
is
the
the
shed
big
that's
spot.
there?
Yeah,
that's
right
actually
in
ours,
front
so
there.
the space above it.
Oh, yeah, the
Got it.
vacant spot, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, I just was trying to get my bearings, okay. Well, I do think that, we changed the zoning in that area, thinking about having more apartment buildings. I mean, that was kind of a thought and a hope. Obviously, we allow people to have those single families, but we thought that would be a great place if we were going to have, an apartment. That would be a nice spot. So I think this would be a good beginning to that. Maybe we'll get more.
And I know this is just concept stage, but
Mhm.
what size apartments, units,
Oh, yeah.
I
Yep,
should say?
studios,
Good
ones
point.
and twos. So a little mix of, they're aware of course, the other projects that we're working on, and as you probably have seen and now definitely know, we don't know until they happen. So part of my job is juggling a lot of different balls in the air and trying to see which one sticks. I say that to say there are a couple of other, the Heights project, which is the real estate funds group, which is not far from here. We're aware of other unit mixes, so they're trying to figure out what the best demand spot is going to be. And they're actually considering a couple of 3-bedroom units too, if we can make it work in the building. So they might have to change footprint a little bit, but right now, studios, ones and twos, maybe a 3-bedroom or a couple 3-bedroom units. Those are generally just more difficult. They take up more space. You can't increase the rent by that much. It's just not, that's why you don't see them built very much. 3 bedrooms are not cost effective.
Yeah.
I'll just throw out one comment, which probably wouldn't be on your radar. But in past history in deciding, first of all, and when the city bought that land, and then our decision to stay here, in the background has always been that one of these properties or portion of which we would sell to either put toward the cost of what we're doing, or not to be sitting on 2 large pieces of property that no longer provided tax dollars. So it was always for this background, well, if we either sell this lot and go up there, or if we stay here and then we, whatever. And there's still, of course, as you asked, that other bit of property
Yeah.
you just asked about.
Just
But I
up
just want to, which probably was not on your radar, but just a remembrance of that, knowing that people may still have that in the back of their minds, because there was a lot of concern of why we were holding 2 large commercial spots. And I don't have, I just want to make sure we think about it. I don't have a strong, interested, because I know that housing is such a huge issue, and we haven't had anything that's come around as workforce yet.
Yeah, it's true.
The only thing on a bigger picture that's still entering my mind about all of this is, so far, which we've never had a need, are these apartments, but at some point, we still need homes for real people. And they're not going to be there. There's got to be other ways we either pull some back or something, some changes to our zoning, whatever. But apartments aren't the long, it's a transition. It might get you here. But if you're a young family, it's not where you're going to be for very long.
Yeah.
So, need to
Just-
make that graduation.
Just something I think about is like when you get into like denser cities, a lot of places will have like single family homes as like closer together than we have. Like we have our 20-foot allotments for, have to have that space around the house. And I think, one way you could help alleviate the housing problem is to rethink that. Like, say you don't need as much space around your house, you can build where you want, rather than you have to build in the center and you have to have driveway and all this other stuff.
Well, we've reduced them quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, if we do, yeah.
it's really quite
Dense.
tight right now. I mean, the way that,
Right,
it's not
but
what
it's-
you see,
yeah.
but our rules
Right.
And-
allow them to be much denser than what we've done to this point.
And then I think the end result, and I'm already watching the end result of that, we managed to attract developers who see building small spaces, but I don't think we're seeing as many local people taking their lot and adding that small. And I don't even know if that's really what we need either, because it's just a single apartment then you're creating on most city lots. And then to your point, that's great if you have an empty lot, but if your lot, your house or your building already sits centered,
Yeah.
then you.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those, sorry.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of like, it's not gonna help, it wouldn't help now, but the next person to come in who's like, I need to tear down this old 80-year-old house and I want to put up some single-family homes, they can build more housing, but
Yeah.
that's not what we're necessarily talking about right now. So,
But
yeah. Yeah.
but no, I opened
Yeah.
that can, so no, you're a target there for that. But those are just the things that I think about.
Mayor, can I respond to two of those things? 'Cause I-
Yeah.
well-made points on both counts, Counselor. I think you were talking about in part the ADU. So I have to commend the council in the city. The zoning actually is, from my perspective and working out the communities, is really has changed a lot and allows for a lot more density, a lot more creativity with development housing in city limits. That's, other towns are starting to try to get their head around it, but I think the city of Grand Marais has done a pretty good job. There's a lot that's allowed that wasn't. The challenge here, of course, is, so that was done, but now the cost of construction is so high that you're not seeing a bunch of smaller homes pop up because cost per square foot is $300+ per square foot. So I think it's just this housing problem, crisis, whatever, fill in the blank, is a patchwork quilt solution. I think I've worked on ADUs for years. It's a really cool concept. Financing them is very difficult. And actually getting people who want to take up some of their yard and build another unit is also very difficult. It's really people who have the means or landlords. Those are the kind of two buckets of people who usually do ADUs. So anyway, go on a whole tangent on the ADUs if you want. But I wanted to clarify two things. One is just be clear about what workforce housing means. There's a lot of jargon in the housing, and I think it's helpful to level set a little bit. Workforce really is, I mean, anybody who has a job could say they live in workforce housing, so it's a little bit of a squishy term that the housing industry has started to use to not be affordable and not be luxury. That's the space it's intending to fill. Market rate is often treated synonymously with luxury level apartments, like an ND or something in Duluth, or pick a place. Nobody knows what market rate is here, really. We have a couple projects that hopefully will test what that is for newer apartments. But when we're talking like actual funding and housing industry terminology, workforce is really usually between 80 and 115% AMI, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
People hear 100% AMI and they think that's like the top end. And it's like, no, that's the exact middle. It's the median price. So I try to help reframe that sometimes, because even myself, I'm like 100%, like, oh wait, 100% is like right in the middle of the road. Everything is above and below that, right? So workforce is, again, between the 80 and 120, give or take. That's kind of the workforce range. We're talking about the lion's share of the county's workforce. That's the wages that they make, and that's the quote-unquote missing middle. The single-family arena is really difficult, as you know. Utilities is one piece of that. Working on 3 different, one's supposed to start, spring again. But we are working on those things because I think we have to explore all of these options. And I agree with you, apartments aren't the answer for everything by any means. It's just the fastest way to put a relief valve.
We need them, we
Yeah.
have to think.
Yep, agreed, 100. I just want to hear you loud and clear, and I totally agree. A lot of people want to buy and own a house if they can
Right.
afford to. Just right now, that's 8% interest rates, but building something that somebody can afford is increasingly difficult. So this is going to, for sure, projects like this will fill a niche of people trying to get in the community who can't afford a house right now. And, if there's not as big of a need, it means rents go down in the future, which is great for tenants. Right, so I think it's a sort of a la carte of all of those options. And this, if it's 16 units, it's gonna put a dent in some of the problem. It's not gonna solve it, but you start putting, all these together in the next couple of years, you got 150 new units of housing. That's starting to really tackle the problem. So,
Yep,
Yeah.
it is.
Anyway, I just want to clarify the workforce thing and the single-family issue.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions about this, or any feedback you want me to give to the developer? Or I know this was, I'd asked the administrator, and he recommended, and I appreciated just coming with kind of a concept like this and getting the temperature and any concerns you might have about this being used for that purpose, or what you think.
Is there, it just feels like you've got, really nice garage space, a lot of, is there room for more in there?
Higher density?
Yeah, like the little bollards you're building? I know you were just doing this concept-wise, but.
Yeah, Mayor, yes. So they were this building footprint is designed right now, the image that you see, the two-story apartment building massing, that's 16 units. And we talked anywhere between 16 and 26, I think. So there's room, you can see on the lawn.
Yeah.
You could bump it out, make it bigger, right?
Okay.
One of the challenges here that I've got some feedback from a couple folks is because these other projects are pending, everybody's a little like, how many apartments can Grand Marais absorb in 2 years? No one really knows that answer. And so they think that this is a place worth investing in and being in, but they just don't know what rents really will be. There's a little bit of that, they're still optimistic enough to do it, but there's a little caution on building too much.
Yeah.
So I can go back and say, hey, they're supportive of this concept. We'd like to explore a little bigger, more units. What does that look like? I'm happy to do that and talk at the end of the day, it's going to be, what are they comfortable, what do they think that the market says they can build and absorb? But I can push them a little bit on that if you would like me to.
I just wasn't sure. What you just said has been in my head already. It's like, when will we have maxed out on what we really need for
I don't
a
think we
while
will.
for apartments?
By the time we build them, I don't know.
Yeah,
You just figure there's so many people who are going to just, who don't live here who will snatch those up, so.
We'll see. That's what I mean. We
don't
don't know.
We don't
We've
know.
never done
You
it.
don't know. I know a couple of things that this is focused on rent, right? Does this developer ever focus on building apartments, like something like this, where they'd actually sell the units?
So condominiums.
Well, yeah. We have one development that's kind of looks like this, that's west of town here a little bit, and there's constantly a waiting list for people to get into it. It's
Which one is it?
Homestead.
Oh, isn't that a senior co-op?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a cooperative, but it's, it's all in-house, they run it,
Yeah, it's
all
great.
the owners. I think there's a need for something like that, whether that's fitting their idea what they want to do. Of course, a lot of it's depending on cost of building and all that kind of thing, but, on something like that, they can have a concept, develop it, and pre-sell before they even start building, and I think they'd be surprised at how many they pre-sell. There's a waiting list. People are waiting to get into that type of living because it's, their monthly expenses are reduced a little bit for certain things that they can share and co-op with, and I don't know, I just thought I'd throw it out there because after looking at that, when I first saw that, I saw, okay, units, garages, I'm going, well, yeah, this is kind of what's going on at Homestead, sort of, but, yeah, it's not workforce housing,
No.
but it's also housing the community kind of needs,
Totally.
because I think that, it's gonna be possibly cheaper than, building a two-bedroom house on a standalone lot with 4 walls and not sharing a hallway, or not sharing a heating system, not sharing all these things that they can share together,
Yep. Shared wall, shared, yeah.
Right.
Counselor, I totally agree. I am talking with somebody about a potential co-op. Co-ops are a little trickier. They're organized more. There's not a lot of co-op builders, frankly. So, yeah, I talked with some folks about Homestead, and the waiting list there too. There's clearly demand, right?
Yeah, there is.
So I am talking with folks about that. This particular program, the Workforce Housing Development Grant Program, is for rentals for workforce.
Okay.
So that's why this isn't that. One of the bigger challenges for the HRA with the co-op housing model is generally those, they're condominiumized, they're
Well,
in
yeah.
a CIC, right? And
Yeah.
that's fine. It's just that there aren't a lot of great funding tools for that, and those are
Right.
almost always market rate plus.
Right.
they're for sale, that are, you know, they're not gonna be affordable, they're not gonna be workforce, they're
No.
gonna be 300,000 plus per unit.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we still need it, so I'm trying to figure out how we do that, or how do we set the table for someone to come in, and
Right.
actually, right behind the Heights site, there's a front part of it, and there's like a smaller notch out in the back northeast corner. That's gonna be left over. We're talking with someone about building a senior co-op at that site. Who knows where that's gonna go?
Okay.
But that's definitely on my radar. It's just harder for us to fund. Those are almost always private developer builders who do their own, like,
I know,
that's driven by the market, so.
yeah.
But yeah, I agree, there's a need.
No.
They just don't get free money for it. Any other these are great questions, by the way, thank you. Any other
No,
questions?
okay, because this is workforce housing, then is there regulations on the rents that they can charge, or? I mean-
It's a state program, so the state puts the parameters around what that range is.
Okay,
Yeah, and there's also like a no short-term rental covenant. I was gonna say clause covenant, yeah, so this is meant for long-term workforce rental housing.
okay.
Yeah. It isn't, one of the interesting things about the workforce program, though, this grant program, is that it's meant for rural Minnesota or greater Minnesota. The rents here, they don't cap it as, they cap it, how's the best way to put this? They have a lower maximum AMI for Metro because the rents are so much higher there, because the incomes are higher. So our AMI is a little higher, but the rents are lower. I know it's kind of confusing, but.
Percentage-wise, it's
Yeah,
lower.
yeah. So yeah, there are state parameters for what can be rented. Yep.
I have two things.
Yeah, please.
First, having lived very close to where the site is, just an observation
Sure.
from living very close to the maintenance building there. The lights are on all the time.
From the maintenance building?
Yeah. So, gotta have good blinds.
Or some kind of landscape, that's on my, like, I don't know why I'd want to live
Yeah.
back to that, really, but some
Right.
landscaping
Some
or
buffering of some
something.
kind, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe some
Just-
kind of change to the lighting, I don't know, but
Mhm.
it just seemed, I would almost have said, maybe that should be commercial just for that reason, but whatever.
Couldn't we do something about the lights?
They're really not that bad.
Okay.
Oh,
they're
yeah, they
they're
are.
really
Hospital, they're
bad.
A lot more light.
Well, yeah, that'd be awful too, I wouldn't want to be across the street from
They're
the
not
hospital
that
either.
bad, but when you're living next to them and you're sleeping next to them,
Yeah.
they're really bad.
When I'm in the radio at night, it's really obvious
Yeah.
when you're around the rest of that neighborhood.
You know, we could look at simple techniques of like pointing the light down. Like there are shutters you can get that focus the light and away. They will put landscaping and buffer in there, but that's something that's definitely good feedback, so I'll talk to them about that too. They came up in last week over at MEA, was that 2 week? Whatever that was.
Yep.
I don't have kids, so.
They were so busy chasing moose around, they probably
Yeah.
didn't have time.
No, they stopped by the site, I think, and took a look at it, drove there, so. But that's good feedback, thank you. Sorry, there was another.
Well, with the building facing the way you have that
There's minimal.
east and
Minimal.
west, the lighting is south, so
Yeah.
you have very little bit exposure to the south side
Right.
with windows.
Sure.
Just, yeah, there'll be no windows in those apartments.
The windows are not in the budget, it's too expensive.
They want the dark sky feel.
They created their
Dark
own-
sky and dark apartment are two different things.
Dark sky apartment.
Yeah. No thanks.
Just put a little sunroof on top. And
We don't want to get sued either, so
No.
there's going to be windows
Oh.
in any project that
Okay,
nature.
good.
So this actually happened, and I'm looking into it. This has happened before in the past. What was the other question, Council? You said you had two things, was the lights and the
Yeah,
others.
there's just a lot of space for driveway and a lot of space for garage. I feel like you could minimize that space a little more to get more like lawn space or patio space or something, but that's just a comment, really.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that this is overlaid
not-
on the existing concrete. I
Yeah.
think that's part of the reason.
Oh, okay.
They were just trying to reuse the impervious that was there, but
Driveway.
yeah, I had the same question with them too. Is there a way to beautify this a little bit or condense it a little bit?
Yeah.
Or so I'll reiterate that feedback too.
Well, then if they're gonna use the existing concrete, then they might as well put that pool back in.
But they don't know about the pool.
And I'm
Now they
not
do.
planning-
It's probably still there, you just gotta dig the
It
dirt out of
is.
it.
It's just filled in.
How does the city feel about liability policies for other developments? Get a pool and the city can run it. How about that? Yeah, you don't think about it.
Oh,
Oh, no.
I was told by my father, who works for maintenance, he was saying that the lights at the maintenance department have, like, what's it called?
And also,
They like sensors
Oh.
to tell like when things are
Like
around.
motion sensors?
Yeah, like
In the
motion
building,
sensors.
yeah.
Oh, in the building. Well, he was saying they were on the lights outside too.
I don't think so, but maybe.
they're
It should
pretty
all be,
steady.
I mean, it's pretty new stuff, right? That when we were
Right.
already talking about dark sky when we built this building, so
Mhm.
they're downlighting already.
Right.
Yeah, they're downlighting.
I'll go, when I'm done here, I'll go take a drive by that and just sit in the lot for a second.
Try and take a nap, see how it goes.
Take it down.
I don't want to get booted for squatting on city property.
I won't tell on you.
Well, as we learned the other week, the sheriff won't be writing any tickets up there anyways, so.
That's right. Don't have to worry about it.
Oh,
If it's our rules, don't have to worry about it.
Any other questions, Counselor, or thoughts on this? Lighting, space, larger project,
Yep.
Oh.
potentially.
I like the idea of it though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially,
what, was there like a, sort of a big broad timeline on this?
Yeah, so, well, my friends and colleagues in the state of Minnesota are, I would say, overwhelmed or understaffed, both of those things.
Yes.
And so,
Heard.
yeah, the indication is that they're gonna have the application out either by the end of the year or early Q1. So, again, the winter time is the sort of kind of tee things up, apply for the funding, and then they would announce it by spring so that you could start by summer. That's the goal.
What is funding on something like this? What are they looking for as far as land acquisition?
Oh, cost?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
I mean, that's the question that I'm thinking right away when I saw this.
Yeah, for sure.
If there's state funding involved and there are projects that are fit into those workforce housing formulas, how do they handle the land acquisition, or what are they looking for there?
mhm.
So there is a, part of the workforce housing grant requires some sort of match, and the equity in the land can be used as match. But honestly, what it comes down to the end is, it's a line item. So I'm just making this number up. Let's say it's $200,000 or something, right? It comes down to what's the funding gap after the state funding. And then we just have to find somewhere else to try to plug the gap, if there is somewhere else to plug the gap. That's really what it comes down to. A lot of it also it depends on how much they want to ask for, like what do we think is competitive grant amount to ask for per unit, and so we have to get a little bit of our heads around that. And he hasn't done, I mean, the gentleman I've been working with is an architect, so he has cost figures, he kind of knows, he designed the building, he kind of knows what the ballpark costs are going to be. He's never done a project in Marais, so I said, well, just add like 10% and be safe. All that's to say, the cost that you could command or ask for the property, I don't know. I don't know. It's just going to be like, well, okay, we can do that, but then where do we pull the other money from to fill that cost gap? And maybe we can ask enough from the state for the workforce housing program where it would still be a competitive grant application. I just don't know enough details on that yet.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's the problem with all of these, is there's just not enough money to, even the market rate projects right now, that are purely market rate, like higher end projects, are not being built often without some sort of help. I know of 3 in Duluth that are struggling to get off the ground.
Yeah.
So their timeline with approval not till spring, we'd still get someone to be ready to be in the ground?
The grant, so,
Did I get your timeline right?
yeah, it depends on when the state gets the application out. Assuming they get it out by early quarter one, I'm just trying to be optimistic here. By February 1st, let's say. Also depends on how long it takes them to do the review and awarding. So there's a whole bunch of questions on the state capacity, but their goal, and staff that I've talked to, their goal is to get it out so that they can review, approve an award by spring, so that projects can at least get up and going and mobilize by summer, which realistically probably means either gonna get the rest of the financing package you get, because you don't know, like, you can't move anything until you know you got that $1 million from the state, right? Then developers like Duval who've done these things before, they know the process, so they kind of queue things up, they wait, they get the news, then they go. I would suspect something like this would be, okay, we got approval, okay, we got the other financing package that we had waiting in the wings, okay, now we need to find the rest of the subs and contractors to mobilize, and it depends on their schedules. So if they have availability to start foundations in the fall, by the fall, great. If they don't, the award is good, there's like a 12, 14 month, like, you have to start within a certain amount of time.
That's right.
Yeah, so
sounds familiar.
the goal is to get it started as soon as possible, but, you know, there depends on what else is going on in town, and who's available to do work.
Right.
It'd be 25.
I'm trying to be optimistic, Counselor, but I'm not gonna say that out loud.
But we'll still, I mean, we can still use the grant if that.
Totally,
or,
that's the thing,
yeah.
and the state knows, like, especially in rural communities, the state knows there's a contractor capacity issue. That's the case in the metro. It's even worse, you know, as you go further out, so. And we can extend it, so I'm not worried about the timing piece of it, it's just when it actually will go.
Got it.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just wanna lock the money down, honestly, so, more than anything else.
Yep, that is wise.
And there might be another project that we might be applying for 2 of those to the state this next year, so.
Great.
Give them options.
See if
And
they
what's
bite
the other
on
one?
something.
Can't say about the other one yet,
Why not?
it's too early.
Well, what's too early?
All of it. We're working on their pro forma back and forth, so I'm not
Okay.
at liberty to talk about it until they say they actually want to do it.
Okay.
Because it's really, the math again is really bad, so they're like, do we really want to do this? Yeah, of course you do. Come on. It'll be fun. So, anyway, thank
We'll
you.
have cookies afterwards, come on.
Yeah, it'll be good.
At 18
And
months.
some lemonade.
Buy a coffee and cookies. A new loaf of bread. So I think I'm generally hearing you'd be willing to explore this a little bit.
Yep.
But Councilor Schulte had a really good question about the pricing thing. I can tell them what I'm intending to tell them if this is okay with council is we're interested in exploring it. It seems like it could be a decent use based on the feedback I got. I'll bring those 3 things up. We need to show what the math looks like. What I hesitate to do is give them any number because then people get locked onto numbers unless you knew like that's what it was. But let's dig in the pro forma and see where we sit, and then we can come back and say this is where we're at. And then what do you think? Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jason.
Appreciate your time.
Yep. That was the warm-up act.
Here's the pass off.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have any cookies while we're waiting.
Indeed.
Nothing.
Indeed it is.
This,
They've got one. You should have brought cookies from the co-op over here.
I brought one. It's gone now.
But anyway, I just.
It's kind of selfish.
It's okay, I understand.
So, yeah.
you want it?
Oh, yeah, no, we'd love to.
Yeah,
No.
okay.
Yep.
That's whatever we need to do, we'll do. And the man with the orange hat.
Yes, the man with the orange hat.
Mayor Benson.
Mhm.
Councilors,
How are you?
very well.
Good.
Yourselves?
Good.
Yeah.
I am here today, this evening, to, similarly to Jason, I'm taking the temperature of the council on if there's any interest or not in a municipal dispensary. I've brought it up with the county board. I brought it up with the EDA. And I'd say there's intrigue, but not necessarily a strong interest there, and just kind of waiting to see what happens with the state regulations and how everything's gonna line up, just because there's a lot we don't know yet. I've been in touch with Senator Hauschild about this, and sounds like there's kind of a two-pronged approach to get clarification there. One is through the Office of Cannabis Management, and that they still don't have a director, so, you know, that's maybe not the best path at this point, but in the hopefully near future. But then also through the legislature, he's going to talk to the bill's author and just say, hey, we need some clarification on this. And there's a lot of questions from municipalities about where they may or may not fit into the system. So. But just as some background, in 2019, Association of Minnesota Counties is the county side of lobbying versus your League of Minnesota Cities. But back in 2019, they formed a cannabis committee, and I was a newly elected commissioner at that point, and volunteered and expressed interest with two angles, one being a new commissioner, because I think they had a lot of old hats in there. But then also with the idea of a municipal dispensary. And they thought that was a kind of an interesting angle. And so as a committee, we met, I don't know, 4 times or something. And really relied on the staff of AMC to kind of bring together what the concerns they're hearing and what potential issues that may come about. And the reason this all started was because what they had been hearing, this is AMC, is that legalization is coming to Minnesota, get ready. And so that's what the effort was for. And then sure enough, it came. I think I included some of the literature that they produced. But we did have an opportunity during those committee meetings to speak with, at that point, it was, I think, House Minority Leader Ryan Winkler. Anyways, Ryan Winkler. He was kind of leading this charge back then. And they took our feedback pretty well, but then we didn't hear anything after that. Then, kind of at the last minute or the last hour, however you want to phrase it, they got our asks in there, and that allowed 40 municipalities to operate a dispensary. One of the criteria that's in the, or not criteria, but just mandates, I guess, that's in the legislation is that communities of 12,500 or less must allow at least one dispensary. And so there's counties around and towns, cities around the state that would prefer to allow 0, but one of the mandates is there must be 1. If there is one in the city, there doesn't necessarily need to be another one outside of the city. If there is one outside of the city, there doesn't necessarily need to be one in the city. So just as long as there is one within our community is all that mandate says. Now, my experience on the city council just lent to the perspective of the benefits of a municipal operation. Also, the rec park is a really good example of non-tax revenue opportunities. And so that's one of the significant angles in my mind around this. During the trainings that I've gotten, I've always asked about other enterprise funds, just from my experience on the city. And there's some landfills, there's some maybe power generation, but it's kind of really few and far between as far as other enterprise funds that municipalities can use. So it's kind of a unique opportunity. I've gotten some feedback from the Chamber of Commerce with some concerns about a municipal dispensary, because they say, why can the city or county do this? Why can't we? And that's a fair question, because they're saying, well, what are you guys just going to take all the revenues and keep it? It's like, well,
that's
funny
not what
thing
we do.
about the city and the county is that those are everybody's monies. You know, it's not just, you know, it's not paying the counselors, it's not paying the mayor, it's not paying the commissioners, it's not paying city staff necessarily. Versus we could have no restrictions on numbers, right? We could say, have as many as you want, investors come on in and all that. I don't think that's what the chamber is looking for either. I think they're mainly looking for kind of keeping it local ownership. Their members are asking about this, you know, it's not like outside people coming in. So there's more conversations to be had around there. Some of the concerns I also hear about is just the impacts that this type of business will have in a community. And those impacts range from physical health, mental health, and even just the economics. It's a very interesting industry. I'm learning things every day and trying to do a lot of research, trying to do the deep dive. I've visited 4 dispensaries, one in Washington, one in Michigan, and 2 in Illinois. There's one in Ironwood, Michigan, that's pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ironwood, but rather I think there's 3 or maybe 4, but it's having a very significant impact on that community. If you haven't been there lately, I would recommend going and checking it out just to see what's happening. That's not to say that would happen here, but we are a visitor destination, and I think there's a lot of potential there and opportunity. So, plenty of other public health concerns. There's going to be state funding for that. We don't know how much that's going to be and if that's going to be enough.
That's part of it's a sales tax, right? That's part of that percentage of the sales tax gets allotted to that.
Yeah, I think it's a 10% sales tax, and then half goes to cities and half goes to counties, I believe. But I don't know how that money is then divvied up, if it's by population or what that formula is, so.
It's
to be
by
de-
number of
Oh, yeah, dispensaries or businesses.
but it's 20% to counties. See, 50% of the aid goes to the counties, and then the remaining aid is distributed to the portion located in each county, and then distributed to cities, and same thing, distributed proportion to the number of, so.
So that's not necessarily going to be insignificant, but again, I'm not certain what that's going to end up being for us. I haven't seen those projections. But that's just the tax from the state. So if there was a municipal operation, there would also be the revenue, the non-tax revenues, and that's something I think that our community could lean into a little bit more and leverage. Those dollars that are coming from the state do need to be used, I believe, for the education, for substance use and abuse prevention, and other programs as well in public health, which I think is very important. That's another reason I think a dispensary is important, a municipal dispensary, is for that captured audience and educating people. There's a lot of new products. Commissioner Hawkins was on a call maybe a month ago now, and learned a lot about how little regulation there is on these new products and how dangerous they really can be. It's kind of the Wild West. Not to say that it's always going to be that way, but right now there's a lot going on. There's a lot of changes. There's new extraction techniques, new extractions, I guess, and all kinds of different things. So that makes for a somewhat volatile market as well. There was an individual in town here selling the hemp at Bucks, I believe, and other products around town. And just, I guess I shouldn't speak for him, but my impression was that there's just so much uncertainty around what all this is, what's happening and what's allowed and what's not allowed, and how do you keep track of that, and what license do you need. He just threw up his hands and was like, it's just too volatile right now. It's not worth it, and I'm out.
Well,
better
do they,
things.
do they, you have to be 21 to purchase that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you walk into a store in Grand Marais that has a liquor license, that facility has to have a liquor license. If they're selling this stuff right now, is there anybody licensing it? Do they have to apply for a license? And who's it through? Who's it from?
No.
It's unregulated right now.
The only thing that's in place now is they have to collect that special tax.
And they are to have registered with the state
Mm-hmm.
by October 1st.
Okay, so they have to register with the state, and then they have to have
Their systems have to.
the
be
taxes,
collecting
the tax is based on retail or wholesale when they
Retail.
buy it? What's it based on?
Retail.
Retail.
So they have to have a 10% tax key on the register, which I don't think.
Well, it's.
Well,
based on-
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
I just understand that I think it's being done and it's not being done right. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
That's,
It could be.
Ve-
If
yeah.
software isn't sophisticated. Most
I-
of them had multiple.
it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. I don't think,
Well, who's investigating it? Nobody.
Not yet. They don't have.
Well, yeah, I
everything
want
set
it to
up.
when? They wouldn't have a commissioner yet, so I mean,
you're right. Yeah,
it's a
Yeah.
mess.
it is a mess.
But let's legalize it.
Well, it's legalized.
That's kind of water under the bridge, but
Well, I know, but still, we have to live in a society.
Exactly.
That does this. That's the problem.
yeah.
Just to back up one, this is the part I wanted to remember. It's actually 80% of that tax sits with the state. Only 20% gets back,
Oh, yeah,
sent back
thank you.
out. And
Yeah.
within
And then
that,
that's split
then
up.
that's what
Yeah.
gets divided 50/50.
For some perspective there, what the state has collected on, and I think the tax rate is different on the hemp versus it is not,
It's just 10%.
straight across.
The
Okay,
other stuff, it's 10% on everything?
that's what
Yeah.
Mayor Benson's saying.
There isn't. It's
Well, I
just-
mean, I'm just saying, yeah. Well, there is stuff out there right now.
Right.
And that's the question I had, because I saw some stuff on display, and I saw you have to be 21 to buy it, and the first thing that I thought of is, okay, well, you have to have a cigarette license, you have to have a liquor license, and you have to be trained on checking IDs for those types of things, and who's regulating this? And then right away, I started reading this stuff, and I'm kind of going, well, right now, nobody is.
Well,
So it's kind
remember,
of
that's
interesting.
been for sale for, what, over a year? And it's just now that they even got to the point of the registration
Registering it,
process.
correct,
I
right.
mean,
Before that, there was no special.
There was
tax. Yeah,
nothing.
there was nothing.
It was, so it's been for sale for, and they didn't even have the tax set up till now.
Right.
So it was really wide
Well,
open.
I saw a report, I think it was in August 1st, there was 750 registered businesses or something in the state of Minnesota, and I think they collected $7 million.
Close to that, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And
huge.
so then the tax on that was 700,000, right? And then it's only increased since then. I think they had 3 months total, and the latest one was 1,250 registered businesses. So it's not to say that's going to be a linear progression there, but it's pretty staggering when you start looking at numbers, and other states too in those numbers. And there's been reports from Red Lake Nation and White Earth Nation about some of their numbers, and they're very pleased with that. I don't really have perspective on what that means and how it affects their communities, but it's significant. There's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot going on, and it's hard to keep track of it all. Not here to say that the city should, that's clearly up to you guys, but I think it's worth considering. I also think it's really worth collaborating, because we don't need to compete. But when there's an opportunity for non-tax revenue, that's something that I hear from my constituents, that you gotta go for it. Any visitor dollars that we can leverage to benefit our community is a smart move, so. But there's lots of safety issues, and there's just a lot to be figured out yet, so. That's all that.
This is the part I keep hearing about, which they reference when they're trying to set a lot of this up, is that, and you've already seen the larger articles, I'm sure, coming through over by Grand Rapids, where
Mhm.
DEED is offering them a lot of money
$20
for a
million.
larger plant and whatever. But have we ever really got any fix for, can a small business owner really start this? Or does it require that larger, more experienced, because you still got all of your tax and accounting issues because you can't, you're dealing in cash and the whole federal issue. I know the feds are considering lowering it.
The
Designation.
scheduling?
Yeah, the scheduling, so that then they won't have to run all through all those hoops. But it just seems like it will be very difficult. I know there's a lot of people waiting in the wings, and I hope that goes well for them. But I just wonder, in reality, do we have any sense of, is it working in other states? Have you had a chance to kind of see that, or is it
The mom
ending
and
up being
pop.
the big
You mean the mom and
players?
pop side of things?
Yeah.
I don't know. The impression I get is it has not, only because there were not parameters built into that. My understanding is the state wants the mom and pop side of things. You know, they're looking at things from a social justice side, down in the cities or wherever as well. So that, I think that's the intention, but to be determined. I don't know. Not that this means anything, but I believe the 4 dispensaries that I've visited have all been big corporate, they plop them down wherever they can, sort of thing, so.
Those are the dispensaries I've been to as well,
Mhm.
corporate.
And it's a very interesting experience if you haven't been to one. It's like a cross between a liquor store and a pharmacy or something. And it's really weird. You walk in the door, at least for me, I walk in the door and I feel like I shouldn't be there immediately. It's just pretty uncomfortable, but very interesting. I asked lots of questions. I think probably made a lot of other people uncomfortable because of that. But learned a lot. Illinois has got a 30% tax. It's crazy. That's just, that makes a big difference. And that's something that, again, we're trying to learn from other areas, other states, just how this could work better, to be determined there.
And here we are trying to get a new liquor store with a revolving beer can on top of it, and in the same vein, we have huge concerns if someone wants to buy some.
What now?
Well, liquor, just personal observation, and I apologize, but,
Okay, you go.
we're selling liquor.
Right.
And I suddenly see this coming through, and all of a sudden, everyone's super concerned about all the health issues. Well,
Well,
they
yeah.
both create a lot of economic,
Oh, yeah.
family, and health issues. So I'm not sure where I am.
Right, but you're absolutely right, and alcohol does have lots of health issues, and we should address those, but if they're not addressed adequately, doesn't mean we shouldn't address the marijuana side of things adequately. We should really try to address that. Once it gets legalized, it's kind of normalized, kids start to think, it's not that bad or whatever. There's lots of studies going out there since legalization in states. Youth really believe that the harm is lessened. And that's not true. There's a lot of harms out there, and we're still discovering those. I'm not against legalization. I just want it to be real. There's no, free lunch. There are impacts. So, whether that be economic or, like I said, mental health or lung cancer. I mean, it's all there. So. But there's safer ways to use too, and so that's part of that education process, Not saying that those won't have other chemical mental impacts, but at least you can lessen the harms, so. Yeah, so it reminds me a little bit of when the breweries, brew pubs were being legalized, there was a lot of people in our community that were gonna start a brew pub. And we got a couple, and that's awesome. But not as many as I heard there was going to be. I think there's just that hype, and I feel like it could be similar with a dispensary. A lot of people are interested. I think it'd be really hard for just a mom and pop to start up. A number I heard is somewhere just to start the business, $250,000. And that's not including a facility. So that's just the business. So that's not easy to secure for someone who doesn't already have a business, honestly, but.
Yeah.
Lots of unknowns.
Mhm.
Any thoughts?
I like the idea of a municipal weed store. I think it makes sense to me personally, especially in like a smaller community like we have here.
I'm a fan of it being in the hands of private, not public owned, you know. I just think it makes sense there. Now, I see the struggles and challenges, but, and I think we're so far off, like, we don't know what this product is gonna look like by the time, you know, I mean, by the time the regulations are known. And, but ultimately, I think it first makes sense in private. You have to staff it. It's a whole new department. It's not gonna just be piggyback off of the liquor store,
Yeah,
right?
which that's
It's gonna be an
unfortunate.
entirely new building that we're gonna ask the taxpayers to pay for. Pass.
I will say in the long run, it can make its money back and then supply more money to the city, so, or the county as well, so.
Well, and, you know, we also realize even with the liquor store, it's not like we just have one liquor, you know, it's not just the city liquor store. There's
Right.
other private ones in the county. So, you know, and there's still a chance there'll be something in Portage, we don't know.
I haven't
Yeah.
checked with Shaw.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, I agree with you. It's like, I think it's a mix of something, but certainly not, for me, I would never want just a municipal cap it. I would never
No.
think that was right.
I definitely agree with that as well, just the fact that you can get some of the stuff at like the co-op or Bucks or wherever, great. But I do think having a municipal one would be nice. Helps generate more profits for the city and
Yeah.
can lessen the tax burden on
Like
those
golf
who live here.
courses.
Like golf courses.
Right, opposite golf courses.
Yeah.
Let's say, did we just discover an additional use to the city golf course?
It's not a given that it's gonna be profitable, that's all I'm saying. We don't.
No.
Certain areas,
Yeah.
I think,
Right.
we have a different type of mix of people, I don't know, or as far as year-round, I don't know, just kind of,
Yeah.
people that live in our community, people that live in our county, our average age, we look at a lot of those things. People that visit our county, what are they looking for? What are their needs, other than looking at the lake and hiking trails? I mean, you know, it's a different scope of use than metro use or suburban use or something like that. So, I mean, that's just a different type of thing. We don't know. You don't know how it's gonna play out.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the thing I always wonder about. I've never even dotted the map to see how close states have come to each other.
Oh, sure.
You know, to see then if that levels off the sales or, you know, because I can remember when liquor was 18 in Wisconsin and 21 in Minnesota, well, you know, everyone flies over across the border right away.
Absolutely.
And,
Same with cigarettes.
Yep.
You know, 28 bucks a carton in Fargo and 85 bucks a
Iron
carton in
Michigan.
Minnesota.
oh,
They're
that's
right on the
what's-
border
that's
of
what you were-
Wisconsin and Michigan. so
Yeah,
it's-
when I drive to Grand Rapids, Michigan, I drive by a lot of those. It seems like it's one company, I can't remember the name, but they got the same billboard about
Mhm.
every 50 miles for 500 miles.
Mhm.
I think they own every dispensary through that whole zone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's happening nationally, as I
Yeah.
understand.
Someone's got the market on that.
The McDonald's of pot.
Pretty much.
Well, myself, I just really wouldn't want to foreclose it for any private person to do it. You know, I just feel like, you know, it's certainly something we could do, but like the liquor store that we took on or started to do, I mean, that was, I mean, there were already liquor stores, right? I mean, it had been going on for a while, so, I don't know. I could see getting into it, but maybe not now or not yet.
So you guys mentioned, not capping. So what is have you talked about the structure for, okay.
No, this is
No.
one of our first, short
Okay.
of those ordinances we tried to get through in August.
Yeah.
We haven't really,
Yeah.
that's why I was so happy you came, so we'd have a real conversation.
Oh, sure, yeah, no, my pleasure.
A lot of it got tabled and just kind of wait to see because they're looking
Yeah.
at the timeline.
Yeah. Would you be open to having another liquor store in Grand Marais?
If it, like a private liquor store,
Mhm.
yeah, I have no problem with that personally. So.
I would recommend
I would-
against it.
Yeah,
We have
pretty much.
You mean,
big
have a
investment
municipal
coming.
private?
We could just invest a whole crap
That's
ton of
gonna
money.
take
Its payback is now 40 years.
Well, if we're gonna allow a private liquor store in Grand Marais, then I don't foresee dumping 8 million into a,
City Hall liquor store building.
correct.
But you
Yeah.
don't really have a choice.
Right.
You're either in the business or you let other people in the business, but there's no mixing.
Well, that's the point I'm making. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just the smart choice, that's literally the law. If we're in the business, no one else is in the business.
correct.
Oh, I didn't know that.
For the liquor store?
For the liquor store.
Yeah.
So maybe.
But,
So if we are
Today.
nobody.
For a municipal,
So-
but, you know, they're
Right, yeah, we don't know.
changing.
yeah, right, exactly, we don't know.
Grocery stores in Minnesota and get rid of that.
Oh,
Comes
yeah,
around.
yeah.
It
Well,
comes-
that's what
right.
I've been saying for
Yeah.
quite a few years.
Strong.
That's what Target and Costco
Yep.
and everyone's just getting ready for, it's
Yeah.
just one wall apart,
Yeah,
but
So
But-
you think that the same would hold true for cannabis or no?
Not yet.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, yeah.
I would recommend, if we want to be in the business, that we treat it the same
That-
way.
Yeah, okay,
And we understand that model,
yes.
but we can make that work, although not without significant challenges. And I'm not suggesting we would do it,
Sure.
but. And
But
we
it
certainly
is
aren't going to
either
build
or.
a $4 million building to, host a municipal dispensary. So
yeah.
Nobody's going to do that. Like, the first ones are going to be
in an ADU.
small, in existing stores.
Where are you gonna get the money to do that? I mean, who's gonna back that kind of money? You're not gonna go to the FDIC bank up here and borrow $4 million to build a dispensary.
No, we're not. No one is in this.
No one
this
is
community.
going
That's
through
not how
it.
they're gonna start. They're gonna start
No,
small.
they're gonna start small. They have to,
Yeah.
unless they have a lot of cash they're gonna spend out of their money, so.
The dispensaries that I've been, so the one in Ironwood that I went through had a drive-through. It was a warehouse that you drove through. I think there was probably 12 cars in the building waiting. I first went in the front door, and there was probably, oh shoot, there's probably a building of about, a room about 15 foot by 12 foot or something. There's probably about 15 people in there waiting. And I was like, oh, wow.
Small room.
Well, that's the entry.
That's
That's
the
the
lobby.
waiting room,
Yeah.
right? And then there's a whole other room that I didn't go in. But I was like, geez, you guys are just waiting to get in? And they're like, yeah. Well, how long is this going to be? And the cashier said, you might be just better off doing an online order and going to the drive-through. I was like, okay, I haven't done that. That would be interesting. And took the family through it and everything and had some good conversations about marijuana and, what it can do to the brain and adolescents especially and adults. But it was quite an experience. There was the one in Washington, I'd say, looked kind of just like a shoe store, not real big, not like a giant Payless, but just like a vendors in Grand Rapids. That's long and gone, probably, but kind of just a small walk-in strip mall type of thing. And then, let's see, the ones in Illinois, one was in kind of a standalone building that kind of looked like a TGIF's, and then the other one, boy, I can't even remember that one now. That was in some, it was
Perkins, in old Perkins.
Oh, perfect.
Probably like.
not that old. Yeah, the other one though, it was just like another large building, and I think there was a drive-through there too, but that was my first visit to a dispensary, and I was kind of overwhelmed and just didn't know what was what, and
Right.
cash only and all that kind of stuff, so
Yeah.
it was not, I don't know, it wasn't small, it was large, but I don't know how to compare them.
Now, cash only, that could have us rethinking our current law enforcement ordinances and needs. Dealing with cash only every single day.
Mm-hmm, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
They usually hire their own security,
Yep.
which is a trend.
And they probably own their own ATM.
Yeah, I bet you're right. Yep,
Definitely.
yep, yep.
Is that part of the drive-through? First you hit the ATM and then you get your product pickup window?
7-8%.
Right, and then they put it back in.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Dave pulls up and spends 20 minutes asking questions about the cars behind our way.
They were friendly.
That's
They were
why
friendly.
that's why there are 15 cars there.
And I was at the Yeah, that was pretty accurate. There's cars ahead of me before I got there. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm gathering from here is you guys got your hands pretty full with the liquor store and City Hall. There's not a whole lot of interest in the municipal. There is some interest, but it's not at the front of your priority list. And if you think that's a fair assessment, I can report that back to the county board and, let them know. But I don't know how that factors into our conversation at all. We also have not had very deep conversations about this. It's just kind of been at this level. And yeah, as I said before, time will tell what is going to be allowed and how things fit in.
Right.
One of the questions was, okay, so if a municipality wants to apply for the license, is it just equal with everyone else? Are you just in this queue, or do you get priority, or how does that work? What are the determinants for licensing and all that, especially for areas that are going to restrict and cap things, like how is that determined? So that can get tricky too. So if you don't have a cap, that might make things easier as far as those kinds of decision-making issues are concerned, but.
Well, that is one, on that note, that is one thing I would like us is to decide with the county is a
Is a
number.
cap.
If we want a number and what that number is, or, or to get started, I mean, you relook at it or whatever, to make sure we all kind of have some sort of thoughts about that,
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think, I certainly don't think it should be one.
I mean, it's,
And the way I'm hearing it and trying to put together, from the administrator, what Mike has said is, look, if you're gonna do it at a municipal level, you don't want the other competition to exist
Right.
in numbers, maybe at all,
Mhm.
right? That's the point of it, to make the money.
Well, in the
we-
city limits,
Right.
Yeah, we could only regulate the city limits. I mean.
Well, we can, for sure.
A partner that's brought the conversation to you.
Yeah,
so
but it's
it
not in the city, right?
Could potentially be a joint conversation.
Get it?
But that's definitely on the record.
Ouch.
And if you're not going to be in the business, and there's a lot of reasons to say no, because it's definitely not been a priority for us,
Right.
then what would be the basis for thinking of a limit? How would we even pick what that number should be?
well, I think part of it just from the standpoint of that to me is one of the unclear things, or maybe you already got that, but based on our population, that's set it at 1 right now, but who's really to say then what that answer is, right? Within our whole county, we end up sitting at 1. Other counties, the number could be vary between a city and a county, but we're just the 1 minimum. So how do we answer that for the whole area if we don't kind of work on this together?
Yeah, I definitely think whatever caps or numbers that we as a county consider need to be also discussed with the city. And again, we haven't talked
At all.
about caps at all. I mainly wanted to see if there was interest, strong enough interest, consensus at the city to pursue a dispensary, and if not, that's totally fine. I'm still gonna push for a municipal dispensary at the county level. Ideally, it would be in the city, but not necessarily. Just seems like it's the hub, that's a good placement for any retail. So I'd recommend so. So yeah,
Okay.
and it'll still benefit city residents, it would just be on the county's tax side of things versus the
Right.
city and the county's tax side of things, so.
No, like, I mean, in a way it does, because we're all county residents.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah. It would still, benefit everyone.
Yeah.
so maybe that's another way to think. I mean,
Yep.
because this is the first time we've really had a chance to talk about it.
No decision needs to be made. You can say, nope, not necessary, and then change your mind, and be like, maybe, or.
Well, do we have a way of, like, deciding on a number of, I don't know, licenses or whatever within the city and county?
That's
Yes.
weird.
And so we can decide that, and then we could also decide that at least one, that the city and the county get one each,
What, I mean,
That works.
right?
I would hate for the city and the county to compete.
Right, no, I was just thinking, like, we can say, okay, we'll have some private ones, like maybe we have 4 or something like that, and we just say, like, we'll hold one of those licenses. At some point in the future, we might want to do it. Things might settle out, it might
Yeah,
make more sense.
I don't think we need to do that.
Oh, okay.
We won't be able to not grant, if we have a number of licenses we're willing to offer, we can't reserve one.
Why not?
That's what the law.
Just wondering.
I mean, the process isn't 100% clear, but that's clearly the intent.
Okay,
But the
Just
number.
change the cap.
Yeah, you set the
Okay.
limit.
Right.
So you don't have to do that, is more the point I'm trying to make.
gotcha,
Right.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah, because you're right, I was gonna say, we don't have clarity at that level yet about the number. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I don't think they had that kind of level of, it was just the fact that we can't, it was more to the point that nobody could be a, so to speak, dry county.
Yeah.
And it was
Gotcha.
gonna have to have a minimum of 1. And I don't even know we haven't even talked, like, would we care if there was a cap? I don't know. And I don't know what the county feels about that.
There used to be a state limit on the number of bars that we could license. And it was 4 in town. We could have 4 licenses for bars, for full liquor, just bars. And there really isn't that same limit anymore. I don't know if we've actually grown past 4 very often anyway, so the market's probably got a lot more to
Market
say
takes
about
care
what
of
a
that.
real number
Yeah.
is. But we don't set a limit on it. As a matter of fact, we advocated for that number to grow with the state.
Okay.
We don't really set a limit on any other type of business in terms of how many we want to see. I can't think of any,
Nope.
other than liquor.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, as I said, I'd like to see a private, and I'd like to see no cap. Just let the private market sort it out, and demand will dictate supply, and we don't have to worry about any of it. But
So but that gets back to my main question, because that's unclear to me where it sits, because we're both sitting under that minimum of 1, city, county. So the city says no cap, and then the county puts a cap, or vice versa. I mean, how does that, I don't know how
I
that
don't
really
think they
plays
put a cap
out.
on the city limits of Grand
We can't.
Marais, though.
We can't.
But it's still an odd thing of, yeah.
It's a principled response,
Yeah.
It's not necessarily practical, because the city could say no cap, and so 4 dispensaries will pop up in Grand Marais or something. And then the county would say, we'll only allow one, or we could say 0 because you guys allowed the 4, but if we allowed 1 and the county got that, they could be just outside of the city limits or whatever. And it wouldn't, I think, accomplish what you're looking for.
Technically, you could be in the city limits though, if you wanted.
Touche? Yep.
You could still have 0 outside,
Mm-hmm.
but that'd be strange.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just sort of a weird thing.
It's
the way
very,
they did
yeah.
that, you know? Like
And that came
they
from the-
said within the city, you could have your whatever.
Yeah, it came from the advocacy of both League of
Yeah.
Minnesota Cities and
I think
Association.
that thing's gonna change too, like, there's gonna be a lot of changes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
We don't
Mhm.
quite know
I mean,
everything.
who knows, maybe
about
they could allow it in municipal liquor stores down the road, then we don't have to,
differentiate.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a big game.
That would
We
be
don't know
better.
how it'll all play out, really.
I'd be
But-
surprised.
I would too.
It's not that way anywhere else, and is moving away from that here, where even they were allowing THC products and alcohol to be sold in the same places, and I'm not sure I don't know why the reason is, but a lot of places that were doing that aren't anymore.
Mm.
So,
No
I
big
mean,
synergies.
everything's possible in the future because we really don't know much about this industry in the state yet, but in other places it doesn't look like that.
In other states, you mean?
Yeah.
Speaking of the deed project that you
Mhm.
referenced,
Yeah.
did you see that article by Aaron Brown by chance? Might have been Minnesota Reformer was the publication. He interviewed a guy who graduated just a class before me out of Grand Rapids. And he runs, I guess, I don't know, a farm out in Oregon, just with perspective on what's going on out there versus what this large operation is supposed to be, which is a Missouri-based company, I guess. And he just thinks it's not sustainable. There's this, so everyone's all jazzed when it's, hey, new market, let's barrel in. And so they build these huge farms or, the infrastructure for it, flood the market, and then everything kind of caves back in. And what the guy out in Oregon was saying is now the thing is these small kind of, I think the word he used was boutique operations. And so he's saying that's where things will go. So for us to invest in that huge thing is just throwing money to the wind. But
And there's actually 2 of them over there in that area. Wasn't it that one of Deed was putting a lot of money into and someone else was trying to self-start a large scale as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a little bit of like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
yes, there's definitely that going on. Yeah, there's one other one. I don't think it's quite as large, but they say we just want it to be fair. If you gave this company $20 million and we're trying to do something similar, then
Yeah.
where's that support? But
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, there's a lot. To your point, there's going to be all kinds of changes, and the market's going to ebb and flow, and it's going to make adjustments. But just as far as our community health and stability is concerned, I feel like if we ease into it and go slow and kind of keep things under control, it's going to be better off in the long run. But time will tell. We'll see. I'll try to I'll keep Mayor Benson informed of whatever updates I hear from the state. But I don't know that that's going to be a priority for them either.
Well,
So-
I know we have some other meetings still ahead. We were going to talk about some other stuff too, I know.
Like a festival thing or whatever.
Yeah, those event pieces, and there's something else too I had, but, so we'll have some other meetings and kind of see, and, I don't know, we can always talk about it again, and maybe some
Yeah, there's an
information
introduction. Yep, no decision.
keeps
Yeah.
things come clear, and maybe once they actually get it's a commissioner, right?
Mhm.
Of
Yeah.
the- Get commissioner in place, maybe some things will start to take shape a little bit more.
Mhm.
And just so I can have that in my head, so is it the thought, the belief, that if you have a municipal, you don't have any private? Is this what I'm to understand?
I think that's a good way to start. But there are, there's plenty of interest in the West End. There's a presumed interest on up the trail, and there's definitely interest in the whole land as well. But I think, a good way is just to start slow and see how things go and see how things change as far as the laws, the regulation, permitting, how it impacts the community, and just what kind of revenues or market there is. But, yeah.
To me,
Corporate
the-
can come in at any point and just do it.
Well, to me, the game changer will be if the feds change the scheduling of
Oh,
it.
for sure, that'll change.
That would
yeah.
really make it a lot more feasible for any private person and just the whole deal.
Well, and there's even talk about not regulating it. I mean, not scheduling it, rather.
Oh.
Just like alcohol is not a scheduled drug.
Mhm.
But I haven't heard as much talk about that as I have about the change in scheduling, so. And I don't know the implications. It sounds like the scheduling implications are not as great as, like maybe the cash side of things, but there's other bills that I thought they were working on to try to make it easier for for business transactions that don't have to be just cash and all that.
And tax.
It seems, it's just like, there's so much, it's impossible to follow it all. It
Yeah.
really is, I'm just skimming through it and just trying to touch solid ground wherever we can find it,
Yeah.
Well, at some point it'll just be the normal thing, but right now
suppose,
there's
yeah.
a lot that's just too unknown.
Sure.
Right.
Well, thanks for chatting, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work
Thanks,
and
Mills.
considering, and yeah, we'll just stay in touch and let you know if I hear anything from the state and blah, blah, blah.
Sounds good.
All
Thanks,
right.
Have a
Dave.
good night.
See ya.
All right. Let's check. Oh, and we're past time. And Patrick, this is the first time you haven't had to give a Fifth Street report, right?
Well, I'll give one.
Oh.
Oh, well, we better have it then.
I've been having a great time flying up and down Fifth Street. That's my report.
Excellent. Oh, and then I guess you could give a little update. You sent out the first community.
Working on gathering, you're talking about the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're working on gathering contributions from local stakeholder, governmental agencies to do kind of like a bi-monthly, kind of like a weekly update like we do, but a bi-monthly update for our legislators. So working on gathering input for that right now, and that is scheduled to go out the first time on November 27th. See how it goes.
Cool.
And tomorrow night I go out to the Tofty Township and their board meeting to present this, see if they want to participate, and then I go to Lutzen and Schroeder, see if they want. And then I think we've got everyone else set. We're not going to wait for them though. Patrick's going to move this first edition out the door, but
Right.
yeah,
Good.
cool.
Great.
We'll go this way, Craig's yawning.
Okay.
My break to
I
finish.
guess we had one more thing at planning and zoning. We also talked about parking downtown. We were talking about the map of downtown and adding East First Street,
First Avenue East.
First Avenue East. I was close. Adding that to the map of downtown and our rules and regulations. The other thing was looking at adding the requirement to have a parking space for any lodging downtown, so not just the larger ones. And last thing was, and then 61, no overnight parking, so I believe is what we were contemplating.
So where does that sit then? Because you're contemplating it?
Well,
Yeah.
they're actually done contemplating it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Where
It'll be
we,
on your agenda next
Yes.
time,
Oh.
after we spend a couple weeks just particularly talking about the Highway 61 rules with folks.
yeah, talking to them, making sure they understand, and getting some feedback.
All right. Cool.
That is it.
Oh. We'll go this way.
North House Board meeting tomorrow. Mike and I have met, small group again, with the North House. We're moving, moving in the right direction. I guess we're gonna speed up, the time between meetings. We're gonna ramp it up a little bit now, instead of, busy summer schedule. We just recognize the need to meet more frequently, so that we can actually get something, maybe
We're only
focus
on-
on some deliverables.
Mhm.
I guess is the phrase that Mike wisely used. And so, that's what we're doing. We're gonna meet again early December. And tomorrow, at the board meeting, I met with Greg today, and he's going to bring up the lease conversations with the board tomorrow. So I think that's a good
All right.
thing as well. So I'm excited about that. That's about it.
I met with Active Living and Steering yesterday, and it was a pretty short meeting compared to what it normally is. But we talked about, we talked with someone from the age-friendly communities, and she just told us about what that kind of entails to some extent, and there was some interest in that. And then I have a TAC meeting tomorrow, which is with Arrowhead Transit. So that's it.
Okay.
That's good.
Public Utilities Commission met on, what was that, November 1st?
Last Wednesday.
Yeah. And we discussed a slight rate increase for electricity. We did not discuss sewer water at that meeting. Just for a little history on electricity purchases that we make from SIMPA, past retail rate adjustments like in 2014 and 15 included a 2% rate increase, a 3% in 16, a 2% in 17, and we did not do any rate increases between 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. We did a 3% increase in 23. SIMPA did raise the rate to us last year, 10%, I believe. And so what we ended up coming up with was a 2% rate increase for 2023, basically to come up with a shortfall in the budget of around 55,000. I guess the rate increase would produce about 55,000. That would go towards our revenue. It's kind of interesting because, we buy and sell power, so it's not always the same every year. It's not always increasing. Some years it goes down, depending on usage, environment, climate, winters, extreme winters, extreme cold winters. We're obviously buying more power, selling more power. So,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a different type of a business to run. Sort of. It's kind of complicated, really, some of it. But
Yeah.
anyway, I think 2% increase was pretty slight compared to the ability that we've been able to keep our electric rates pretty consistent, I think, throughout quite a few years. So I guess if anybody has any questions, we had a pretty long meeting on that day. If they want to log in and watch that meeting, get more in-depth discussion about all this, they can get a lot of information off of that. That's all I have.
Okay. Do you have anything, Mike?
Please approve the hire of Marais Flynn as a library clerk.
All right.
Okay, do we need to make?
So
a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor of hiring Marais Flynn? Lynn?
I hope I'm saying that right, but yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
That's good.
Let's see. So we got through all the parking, should say. Where do we sit with the short stay? What's the update on that?
No update on that.
All right. I just have one thing. We had our meeting today. Mike was there, Shane Steele, Dave Tierstig, Elena Hansel, and myself. I think that was everyone. With that coastal program that I brought up at the last meeting. And so we presented to her all of the issues, the East Harbor erosion. Dave Tierstig covered a lot of the main harbor and the marina issues with water quality and the wetlands way over there. She takes all of that in, and I think her initial thought was this side of the harbor was certainly a good fit within the criterias and other pieces as well. So then we have a folder set up. We've got a lot of information, whatever, previous reports, data, whatever we need to get to her about all of this. And then we'll meet, I believe it's next week or week after, and kind of go through all that again and then see if there's other people, other stakeholders to get in. I think their timeline is to put together it's not a detailed plan, but it's the framework of a plan with the engineers. If first they decide which of all our issues would make a good project that fits within the scope, and then put some high-level potential solutions. And then in late spring, they also provide us with funding sources and help in writing grants and making sure we're getting pointed in the right direction on whatever project pieces they think have application and help us with. So we'll see how that goes. I asked if afterwards follow-up, Dave replied yes, that he would like to do this. Wanted to know their thoughts, is this a good idea, should we stay with this? And I'm thinking the answer is yes. Mike thinks so, Dave did. So we'll see where this goes, keep you guys up to date,
Yeah.
but lend some assistance. So I think that's all that I had.
Great.
So I guess that calls it a night then.
For sure. Huzzah.
All right, thanks everyone.
You want to do that nominating?